Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our weekly live question and answer series where we sit with an integrative medical physician and we take questions from you and give you general health advice. I'm sitting today, as I usually am, with Dr. Rita Ellithorpe, the founder and medical director of Tustin Longevity Center here in Orange County, California. And just a quick disclaimer, the information that we share today and the questions that we answer, this is not to be treated as specific medical advice. We don't want to replace the relationship that you have with your physician. Any specific medical questions, make sure that you follow up with your doctor. But we're answering questions for information and educational purposes. So thank you. And the way that you can interact with us, two ways. One, you can use the chat section here on the side of the video. You do need to be logged into YouTube for that, but you can post your questions there. We're monitoring them and we'll answer them here live. Or in between, or if you can't log into YouTube, you can email your questions to us at office@tlcdoctors.com, and those emails are forwarded to me, and we'll ask those during the week or on the next YouTube video. All right, Dr. Ellithorpe, I understand you have some information, some articles that you want to share with us today while we wait for some questions to come in.
Okay, do we have questions from last week that we didn't get to?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure we try and get those.
Okay.
So what I want to do is bring up some articles over the research we do every week. And this came out yesterday, day before yesterday, on the 12th of October in the Wall Street Journal. And that was posting that Johnson & Johnson has paused its COVID-19 vaccination due to the subject having a serious side effect. They won't give us any more information than that. The quote is, Johnson & Johnson said it has paused further dosing in all clinical trials of its experimental COVID-19 vaccine because a study volunteer had unexplained illness. The pause, announced Monday, affects all trials of Johnson & Johnson vaccine, including a large phase 3 trial that began in September that aimed to enroll as many as 60,000 people in the U.S. and several other countries. Now, Mr. Wolk, who represents the company for Johnson & Johnson, he said that they're hopefully only going to pause a few days. This is the second time trials for COVID-19 vaccines have been paused over safety concerns. And last month in September, AstraZeneca paused its clinical trials of an experimental COVID-19 vaccine after a participant in a UK, United Kingdom study had an unexplained illness also. Now, when I'm published, and you know, we're always in institutional review boards looking at the safety of things, but you expect, you know, in the course of time, there are things that can happen to people outside of the clinical study.
Right.
But when, because I am a published scientist, when something serious happens, you have to pause everything.
Right.
So obviously whatever has happened was very serious. It wasn't something that was anticipated as a potential, okay? Mm-hmm. And what we get to here is that study from AstraZeneca last month is still on hold. So although Johnson & Johnson said they're going to pause hopefully a few days, right, I suspect that it's going to be paused for quite a while. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm concerned because he states, we ensure our studies may be paused if unexpected serious adverse events that might be related to a vaccine or study drug is reported. So obviously this is more of the nature of a serious one. Now, if you read further in the Wall Street Journal article on this, they do really give us a little information on what's in the Johnson & Johnson study, and they're saying the company's shot vaccine uses a weakened version of a common cold virus. Remember, coronavirus is the common cold as well, okay? So there's many in the family out there. So they're just using a weakened version of a common cold virus, which is engineered to deliver genetic instructions. I want to repeat that, which is engineered to deliver genetic instructions, teaching the body's cells to make a protein resembling one found on the surface of the coronavirus. And this is where that messenger RNA comes in, messing with our DNA. And I'm concerned about that. We've never been able to make a vaccine for the coronavirus series, SARS series, and they're using messenger RNA. So they're admitting here that they're engineering this thing to deliver genetic instructions. I'm not sure I want my genes to be instructed.
Sounds like genetic modification of
Yeah.
a human being.
Yeah, so I'm just quoting the article, and that's for you to do your study and think about. And they reveal that in AstraZeneca's trials in the UK, the study of their vaccine in unexplained illness was described as a spinal cord problem. And this is following another patient in the UK study who also had symptoms involving neurological issues, which they felt later was due to an undiagnosed multiple sclerosis. That's possible. But then how do they know it wasn't from the vaccine? Mm-hmm. So I just want to bring that article up, make sure we covered that. That's in the news for your health awareness. Then another thing is, this is published in an article October 12th, 2020 by the magazine called The Spectator in England, okay? And this is commenting on the World Health Organization. The title of the article is from The Spectator, Coronavirus. World Health Organization WHO backflips on virus stance by condemning the lockdowns. And this is by one of the team's scientists and advisors, Dr. David Navarro from the WHO, appealed to world leaders yesterday, telling them to stop using lockdowns as your primary control method of the coronavirus. He also claimed that the only thing lockdowns achieved in a past tense was poverty. And quote, lockdowns just have one consequence that you must never ever belittle, and that is making poor people an awful lot poor. Now, I reflect on this over 40 years roughly now of studying medicine and science, and if you go to Dr. Susan Humphreys' book called Dissolving Illusions, she does an exhaustive, and she's a Stanford primary major in physics, then went on to medical school, then specialized in nephrology, and she saw a correlation between the flu vaccine and her hospitalized kidney patients that concerned her. This concern threw her into a research frenzy, and it also cost her job because they kicked her out, and she doesn't practice there anymore, not because she did anything wrong, it's because the system didn't want her not to give the flu vaccine to her seriously ill, hospitalized patients. So, in her book called Dissolving Illusions, you'll see graphs. So if you went to the computer and you wrote Susan Humphreys Dissolving Illusions graphs, you'll see about 50 graphs of world research where doctors from the 1800s, like in England and Ireland and Spain and France and then the early Americas, we always keep statistics. That's how we know some of the stuff, like on the Spanish flu from 1918. Mm-hmm. If you look at these graphs, you will see that illness, measles, flu, whooping cough, staph infections, rheumatic fever, scarlet fever, all these diseases had been codified, and they tracked them for more than 200 years, or almost 200 years now. Okay. And this is government research medical data points. And you'll see that the death rate per 100,000 declined as men and women and nations became peaceful, stopped warring, started to trade and share and do commerce, and you would get oranges from the Ecuador and places that grew oranges, and they were brought up to the cold England places, and they got more fruits and vegetables year long and shipping. So when peace occurs and trade and wealth occurs, then the diet and nutrition of the people is elevated. And we see in every single country all these dreaded diseases dramatically dropped even before vaccines could have any impact. So that you need to remember that.
So that we're linking, or at least there's a correlation between better nutrition and decreased death rates per 100,000.
For all causes.
For all causes.
Including these fearful pandemics and colds and stuff. And he is pointing out that this lockdown is making us sicker, more fearful, and more potentially agitated and less well given our foods and nutrition.
Right.
So I recalled that in my training. So I wanted to bring that article up. I want to point out yet another article came out doing a retrospective meta-analysis of the SARS-CoV-2 positivity rates associated with vitamin D levels. So why again have we done so well here? Because we emphasize prevention and nutrition and protecting our patients rather than waiting on them, like if they smoke or have COPD, we advise them not to smoke, and so they, even though they had many years, we inspired them to quit smoking, and they were in their 80s, late 80s even, and they didn't get SARS, So one of the things I want to point out here, I marked the page, is in this study, they showed that with your level of vitamin D, if it's very low, let's say you were 20, 30, 40 on your vitamin D level, your positivity rate for COVID and SARS-2 was very high.
Okay.
But notice when you get closer to 60 or lower, and we've always said 80 is where we...
That's our baseline.
That's our baseline,
okay.
Yeah. You can see that the positivity rate almost is negative, and that correlates with better nutrition, better trade, better commerce, prospering people, not fighting, countries doing trade, we get our vitamins here, we get trade, and all the people do well. So this is just a slam dunk for all the physicians out there and nutritionists and chiropractors and naturopaths who have promoted preventive medicine, and I think that's why we did so well. There was another article, and this was done, it was double-blind, randomized, placebo. Remember, this one was a retrospective meta-analysis. This actually was a study that was done on N-acetylcysteine. Okay, remember glutathione is a very powerful and helpful for as an antioxidant and many components of the immune system. And they looked at them and their activity with regard to infectivity to SARS and the colds. And although it was not statistically significant, there was a trend, that did show that N-acetylcysteine was valuable. So I'm not going to stop taking my N-acetylcysteine glutathione, okay?
There's certainly no harm to continue.
Oh, and many other benefits
right.
to the body. So this just came out, and this was published. It was just accepted for manuscript publication, and I have to find out I don't have it right off the bat right now, but I'll have this referenced in our articles here. And let's do 2 more items, and that is the CDC.gov had a publication that came out 2 days ago also, and they reviewed between July 1st and July 29th SARS-CoV-2 test results on patients, and they categorized them from were you wearing a mask within the 2 weeks prior to your coming down with COVID, okay? And what they found was those who reported that they always wore these type of masks, okay, or other cloth masks that are not studied, those who always or often wore a mask represented 85% of those who came down with COVID-2. But those who never wore a mask but did come up positive for COVID-2 were only 3.9%. How valuable are these is the question I have. And lastly, of course, they come out with a study that is done at Jackson Memorial Hospital, Miami, Florida, University of Miami, and they look at healthcare providers and the people who are in a nursing home. Mm-hmm. And many of them, often soldiers, smoked, had COPD, and they looked at their PO2, their ability to breathe, their CO2 level, their oxygen level. And in this, only those who were known with severe COPD did show with trying to walk and move around that they had some diminishment in their O2 and an increase in their CO2 levels. So this just was published, and yet I've been practicing 40 years, and I have literally dozens and dozens and dozens of articles on masks that talk about their negative effects and their not having value. So it's intriguing to me now that we're starting to see some who are saying there is value to a mask, and the value here, this really isn't a value study. This is how damaging is a mask study, and it really was only marginal for people who have the problem already. You know, they have one of these secondary conditions that puts them at risk. So I have lots of questions, about even the quality of tests. What does the PCR test itself tell you? If you're amplifying it so many times to find, a trillionth of a particle of a coronavirus, and you don't even know if it's the real COVID-19, how are you diagnosing this? And if you're asymptomatic, what does that mean?
Right.
And the same with the serum antibodies. What does that mean? And was it to SARS-CoV-2 or was it some other? Just like you said, the study for Johnson & Johnson, they're basing that off of a coronavirus, not necessarily COVID-19.
Right.
But we think it's that way, and that's not the case.
Right.
So I have lots of questions, and I look at the thousands of patients we have here over the 7-8 months, and we've had no problems. I've had no problems, okay? So I have lots of questions,
right.
And I'm very thankful for good nutrition and commerce and all the preventive things we've been talking about.
Well, it's interesting. That makes me think about the case counts and how there's such a focus on daily reporting of case counts for counties, states, countries. Case counts are going to go up when you're doing more testing. And in the beginning of the year, when this was brand new, test kits weren't very available, the public wasn't educated. Now we have mobile testing sites and urgent care centers and primary care. We're testing all over the place. And it should never be about case counts. This was about slowing the spread while we figure this thing out. And a vaccine is going to be developed, but we should be looking at other factors like complications, death rates, hospitalizations, because we're afraid the hospital systems are going to become overwhelmed.
Which they never were, and which now we know that the actual disease mortality rate, okay, is the same as the common flu. And the flu we go through year after year after year. And the total death rate for the year 2020 is actually less deaths compared to 2019 and 2018 and 2017.
Well, the news are saying that we've crossed 200,000 deaths from COVID-19, I believe, in the United States, somewhere around there, right?
But are all those COVID-19 deaths?
Exactly. I was just having this conversation with someone last night, how the leading killer, the leading disease cause of death is cardiovascular disease, right? A person dies every minute, I believe, or 3 people every minute. A lot.
Seconds, yes.
Yeah, every second, something like that. And last year, if somebody died of cardiovascular disease, cardiovascular disease would be on the death certificate, and that's the cause of death. Now, they're testing either before mortality or after mortality. Did they show positive on PCR for COVID-19? Now, instead of that person being classified as
a cardiovascular death,
disease, it is now and this is a person that these aren't healthy people. These are people that were going to succumb to the disease this year or maybe next, and then there was just something that pushed them over the edge, possibly.
Yes, in other words, every year there's an expected amount of total deaths in the United States. These are statistics like Susan Humphreys went through. And in America, there's roughly 2,850,000 deaths every year. 2,850,000 from all causes.
Right.
And this year, we have less than that, okay? So far. Now, October 15th, I think tomorrow is when we start the new flu season. And anyway, I just thought those articles were good. Even the original test kits, they had problems with them, and they were contaminated with this alleged COVID-19. Then the counting, the actual cause, and reporting.
Yeah, and
there was all kinds of controversy over it.
A lot of controversy, and it just begs to question. We're now many months and almost a year into this. Was the lockdown the right decision? Should we stay locked down? Should we continue to enforce masks? Should we keep kids out of school? Should we keep people out of work? We should reevaluate this and certainly ask those questions.
And one thing we can clearly say over hundreds of years of medical statistical collation is that when commerce and trade, and we are open and getting fruits and vegetables, and we reduce poverty, nutrition goes up and disease goes down. And then the vitamin D, that's a fact that the vitamin D has been proven to be so valuable in preventing your immune system from failing you. So I think we have the answer. Now, so if they're concerned about what can you do, I think let's take our focus off of lockdown and masks, and let's ask doctors who do preventative medicine to come to Washington, D.C., to come to Johns Hopkins, come to Stanford, come to UCLA and all the medical schools here, and let us teach them about preventative medicine and how we did so well.
Okay, I want to go back to the questions from last week that we didn't have time to answer. Hopefully those news articles were valuable to you and a little discussion on current events. But jumping back into last week, not necessarily in order, I have a question from, it looks like, The Car. Hi, Dr. Ilthorpe, are you treating fluoroquinone toxicity yet? They use NADIV, magnesium, and prolotherapy or stem injections, is my understanding. Fluoroquinone.
In other words, the fluoroquinones are drugs like Cipro and Levaquin, things like that, that are fluoride-based biologically created molecules. And these fluoroquinones are associated with tendinous breakdown, and it's very emerging as more and more common. Well, one of the things you have to do that is get iodine, okay? Because if you get a good education in chemistry, which they don't require of medical students to become a doctor, you know that the halogen chart on the elemental chart is higher than iodine, and it'll push it away. And if you're low in iodine, then you'll succumb to the fluoroquinone halogen damage. But if you're robust in your iodine, you have they may be lower on the elemental chart as far as their mass, but when you have I don't know, there was some cartoon about the big grasshoppers taking over the little ants until the little ants figured out that if they all organized, they could get the grasshoppers. There was some kind of a cartoon or a movie on that. So what I'm associating is iodine might not be as powerful or potent a halogen as fluoride or chlorine. But if you have a ton of iodine in you, then the whole mass action can do a good deal to prevent the damage of fluoroquinones. Therefore, I'm not against prolotherapy and stuff.
And
but
IVs, stem injections.
I think that's a lot of waste of money. I think you need to do something more preventive before you get to that point.
Okay.
Thank God there's some people who, once you've got the damage, you have a resource to do, okay, or stem cells. But let's prevent it all, you know?
Yep.
Let's get the use of fluoroquinones only for life-threatening things.
Right.
It's just casually written as a prescription, and we hurt people, and it angers me because they frightened everyone from hydroxychloroquine, that's been around 65 years, or EDTA chelation, and it really benefits everyone and protects us, but don't bring up fluoroquinones that have this great new problem emerging, you know. It's very hypocritical, and it's very pharmaceutical finance driven.
Okay, another question, from the same person. Any thoughts on Jerry Tennant's work, Healing is Voltage, electron stealers versus electron donors with old infected root canals and surgical scars affecting body meridians and inhibiting healing?
Yes, absolutely. I did another doctorate back in the 90s on integrative medicine, and we are energetic beings. We are vibrating, you know, as we speak. This chair is vibrating. If we came back to this room in 500 years and no one came in the room at all, it would be dust piles, because this is combining with the oxygen in the room, okay? The chair will become dust, this will fall apart, okay?
And every element has its own unique frequency.
That's what the elemental chart is. And so if they would really teach doctors a better approach to what the human being is and how we communicate. We have these big superhighways called our blood vessels and our nerves that have a potent boost, okay, amplifier of the message, but every cell and every molecule has an electrochemical vibration. And so if you're not hydrated enough, okay, if you don't drink enough water, your vibrational communication is going to get slowed down. You're not going to clean out the dust particles. If you don't get a good night's sleep and heal, you're not going to have a good vibrational system. Mm-hmm. So you'll have all the problems of it. So I'm very much in favor of the Beamer mat we have, and the minerals that are very important in electrochemical communication and so forth. So yes, I'm very well familiar with it, and I support it all. There's a wonderful book called The Body Electric, okay? And there is another called The Body Electric and Vibrational Medicine. So every doctor should be required to read this. Every doctor should be required to major in chemistry.
Okay, awesome. I know that it's a big topic and a lot of things we could say on that. We do some things with energy
here, yes.
The Beamer, PEMF. At one point we had like a vibrational machine that would just kind of like shake you up.
Right.
But definitely tons to look into there. I see another question that came in that's an easy, quick one to answer. I think very timely. Catherine asks, there are some doctors on television saying we should be taking a zinc supplement. If so, how much?
Well, you know, I've been here giving everyone zinc supplementation for many decades.
Yes. And
okay?
a lot of our multis and multi-minerals already have it in there.
It's already in them, yes. And I think that's why all my patients did well. But if you're finally getting on the train to learn about nutrition, then you'll have to take zinc supplementation in a larger prescriptive dose. And I would say 50 milligram in a chelated form with an amino acid. I've seen some as high as 200 milligram supplementation in very seriously ill people. But once you live a lifestyle where you are taking these minerals in, you can do very well on 7-10 milligrams daily in your multi-mineral vitamin. But let me also add, some of the most dense mineral nutrient foods are the things that you've been frightened away from eating, like oysters and meat and eggs and fish. I mean, they're full of minerals, okay? So if you ate healthy, so I'm concerned about vegetarians, okay, and vegans, that they don't get enough minerals in their general diet, and that's why we do mineral assays.
Right. And if you are just needing to get on a quality zinc supplement, we have the reacted zinc.
Yeah, and I think that's
chelated from orthomolecular.
Yeah, and I think that's 25 milligrams.
No, it's 50. It's 54-ish.
All right, 54-ish milligram. You could take one a day and do that for a couple of months or until the bottle's done. And then just rely on your wonderful, well-designed multi-mineral TLC Energy Core or Orthomolecular's MitoCore.
Right. Okay, it is 10:15. We didn't get to every question even from last week, and I know some questions came in this week.
But I wanted to get those articles out.
Right, yeah.
So.
Well, we won't lose your questions, and next week, if there aren't any major news events or articles out, then we will jump right into that. So join us next week. Anything else to add for the day?
I really want you to like and subscribe, please, because that helps us. And we are looking at trying to turn this into a early evening video.
Or making some more time for this.
Yeah, making more time for this, and so
we can only do that if it makes sense and we have enough people participating
that are interested.
So let us know you're interested by liking, by subscribing to the channel. That definitely helps out.
And let us know what time slots you find you could get family and friends to watch, and go to the TLC videos, like and subscribe. That will give us some better options for this.
Right.
And we just opened up our new unit for doing group visits.
We did, yes.
Yeah, so I want to start doing group visits and having it online and video. And I'm will, if I don't know something, I'll let you know, but I've been around 40 years, so I know something about enough, to get us started, in
absolutely.
research.
All right, thanks again for joining us. Remember, you can email your questions if you really want to make sure that they get to our attention. You can do that to office@tlcdoctors.com, and we'll definitely make sure that we get back to the questions that weren't answered today. Thanks for your time, thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you next week at 9:45 a.m. Pacific.
Okay.
Thanks, folks.
All right.
Good.